I'm a fun guy. Obviously, I love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more question you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about myself. I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the 606. I'm your host, as always, SES Vince. And joining me today, my faithful companion, as always, Basharat. Bash, how's it going, man?
Man, it's pretty good. Honestly, this is something we have been teasing. We've been saying we're going to talk about this for quite a while, and then we just never get around to it. But finally, we can get around to this franchise that really hit its peak in like 2019 and has kind of dropped out of the conversation almost entirely since. And we're kind of in a point now where we're seeing, are they going to make a comeback or not? So I'm really excited with the Doomsday trailer having dropped that the MCU is back on the topic list. Let's get to it.
No, dude, we're not here to talk about Doom. We're here to talk about the Raptors.
You know, that makes sense. Rylan and Kyle are here, so yeah, I think
yeah. Hey, how's it going, everyone? We are also joined by Rylan Turner and Kyle Joseph of Wallop Media. How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining.
Good.
Are you also ready to talk the Doom trailer? Apparently,
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
All right. Oh, we should talk about that at some point. But no, guys. We're here on the 606. We're here to talk hoops. We're here to do a Toronto Raptors report, just like our recent Chicago Bulls offseason report. We're gonna do the same thing for the Toronto Raptors because we're sponsored by Wallop Media now. So we did a little like touching the tips with the fusion dance, and we're all one happy family now. So gotta talk about our other team on the channel. And yeah, Toronto Raptors, it's an interesting offseason. It really does feel like 2019 though. You guys traded for Kawhi Leonard again, and amongst other things. But
did we do that?
In theory you did. In theory you did.
Question.
In practice, we still don't know. First off, again, thank you guys for being here and joining us. Kyle, I'll start off with you, man. Like, how are you feeling about this Raptors team? Assuming all the hypothetical trades go through.
So, because I will say, like, how I'm actually feeling about the Raptors, this is Schrodinger's offseason. It could go in a couple of different, it could go in a few different ways, honestly, because there's also the possibility that if part of the punishment is that Kawhi's contract gets voided, all of a sudden this becomes a very good offseason for the Raptors,
right?
Or a disastrous one.
Yeah,
it's always impossible to tell with the Raps, but assuming the I's get dotted, the T's get crossed, and Kawhi gets to play basketball at some point in 2026 or 2027, cautious optimism. I think for the Raps, we've been in a place where they have never been bad enough. Like, as soon as that Scotty sort of developed into that player where he became kind of that dude, they've never been able to really be bad enough to be truly terrible.
Yeah.
But they've never been able to make that leap. They weren't in a bad spot. And I think the thing about, because as Bulls fans, I'm sure you're aware of the trap of mediocrity and the pain that comes with that.
Well, for you, it's a trap. For us, it's an aspiration.
Yes.
Pun intended.
But
yes.
But oh man. But the reality is that in the Toronto media market, with a lot of the stuff that's going on, and the competition for dollars, entertainment dollars, it's always scary if a team that isn't the Maple Leafs in Toronto starts to get really bad, because then all of a sudden the fan support really dries up. Like, I'm probably more a baseball fan than a basketball fan, and the difference between the Blue Jays bad years and the Blue Jays good years are such night and day. It is a very, very fair weather town. So it's understandable why the team doesn't want to get to that level of bad. Like tanking is going to be a hard sell in Toronto. And then once you have Scotty and the core they've developed around Scotty with now CMB, IQ, RJ Barrett, and then of course if Kawhi comes into town, that's a pretty good core of players. Obviously I'm sure we're going to talk about the glaring issue in the room, which is the lack of tall on this team.
Oh,
and the problem.
You got a
that
couple
comes
centers
with...
the Bulls don't need. You like Zach Collins?
May have pitched that in our Bulls episode. Like, hey man, we got to target the Raptors. They're going to need a center.
I mean, honestly, that's the thing. If it turns out the contract is voided and Kawhi is able to come over here for free, all of a sudden Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick are very interesting trade pieces to be able to float for, some potential size and all. Now this starts to really round out into a really interesting situation. But if we understand the trade to be what it is or close to what it is, I think the idea that I've heard floated is like, if he gets a 20-40 game suspension, you might have to drop a draft pick off of it. But I don't imagine the players would be changing. Whatever happens with it, assuming Kawhi comes to town, there is an interesting team to be put together here, but there are holes. It's not going to be an immediate jump to the top of the East, but it is a team that if your goal, if you're the Raptors, is probably top 5 in the East. And
I try to say let's get home court.
Yeah, home court would be amazing. That's the goal. There's enough talent here, assuming things break well and Kawhi doesn't break, that top 4 is not unreasonable. And the nice thing about Kawhi is, given the system that the Raps want to run and that Darko wants to run, where that's sort of a bit more grit and grind, that defensive system, very structured type of play that he wants to play, Kawhi kind of slots into that really nicely, in a way where you can just have him take away the best defender. And all of a sudden, Scotty is a pretty good defender. He looks a lot better having to take on the second guy and maybe focus more on the offensive side of the ball. And RJ Barrett looks so much better if he doesn't have to think about defense too much. So that's a lot of talented swingmen and a lot of options. Again, CMB adds another depth option in that sort of same position. There's
CMB was playing back at their center minutes for them, small ball 5.
And I think that's probably you're going to start Pirtle. Yeah, you're going to start Pirtle, and Pirtle is going to be probably get 30 minutes a game, depending on what your matchups are and your opposition. But all of a sudden, CMB, basically IQ, Barrett, CMB, Kawhi, and Scotty. That's if you're playing against a lineup that doesn't have a true dominant center, those are hard minutes that you're up against for a pretty interesting small ball lineup. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. I love the whole detailed analysis and breakdown of the roster and what it could be and the potential for it. I'm curious about Rylan's take, because leading up to this trade, he was expressing to me that he was not the biggest fan of the way Kawhi Leonard handled himself as a person, as how he handled the whole scenario. Obviously, different perspectives, because we're from the outside looking in. I could imagine hey, this guy come in here and then doesn't want to stick around. But you weren't really the biggest Kawhi guy. You appreciated what he did, Rylan. But yeah, then I think maybe 2 days later, after we had that conversation, we get the bombshell news that he's gonna get sent over to Toronto. And confirms the speculation between Toronto and San Antonio. And then all of a sudden, I think you dusted off your Toronto Raptors Kawhi jersey.
I did. It wasn't. Listen, the year Kawhi played with the Raptors, I was a fan. And even on the Clippers, I was a fan. Even when he was in San Antonio, I was a fan of the guy. But I didn't like certain comments he made about the talent on the team.
Right.
which is neither here nor there. Would I rather a Toronto Raptors team without a Kawhi Leonard? Absolutely not. That's craziness. Like I've seen rankings that put him in one of the top 10 players in the NBA last year. He had a great
he was in the
season
MVP conversation, for a
Right.
significant portion.
So if you think for a second that I'm gonna be like, no, my team doesn't want that because he said some things that I didn't like. No, that's craziness. The thing with this though, and like you had said, like assuming that this, gets wrapped up. The thing about this is we've been at it for 10 months now. And apparently the next process is a trial. This could be going until that's what I understand the process of what they have to do to figure this all out is there is some sort of a trial situation and then there could be an appeal.
Right.
So there's a lot of people, or at least from what I was reading, there's a lot of people speculating that this might even go until spring training, or sorry, not spring training, but
training camp in October.
Training camp, yeah,
preseason. Yeah. No, it's a very real possibility. Obviously, Adam Silver has expressed that he kind of hopes it wraps up soon, at least ideally in the summer. Very unfair too, regardless of how you feel about them, for someone like Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram, who now technically are members of the Toronto Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
They don't they have to report to the Clippers if the trade goes through. If the trade doesn't go through, or it turns out that Kawhi's contract is now voided, and guess what? They still on the Raptors. Now it's an awkward situation. Do you keep them there? I don't think you keep Ingram. Maybe you keep Grady Dick, just because he's on the bench. Doesn't cost you too much. But it kind of puts their lives and careers on limbo, and that's unfair to them. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I overheard somewhere where Adam Silver was quoted saying that he's barely interviewing Steve Ballmer 10 months in. And I was like, bro, what are you doing? That should have been done the first couple months. Why are you interviewing the owner of the team that late into the process? But
that could have been, if it's him, that's separate from Wachtel, Lipton, et cetera.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones conducting the investigation. He may have meant that they interviewed him. He therefore would have not spoken to him about the situation. I would imagine. Regardless, you think that the most likely outcome is probably that the NBA wants to come up with a punishment that the Clippers and or Kawhi, whoever the affected party who would be most likely to appeal would rather accept the deal and go along with it. So that's going to be part of it, I imagine, instead of dragging it on. Certainly, if Kawhi's being punished, you would think that he would want to come to an agreement that would allow him to then be traded and go move on and then get his contract extension. Beyond that, Silver is extremely timid. He is unlikely to make a move that is going to upset the Players Association too much, which means, and he's repeatedly stated, despite the fact that he has the clear authority to infer a cap circumvention from circumstances, and based on the CBA, that clear language says he can infer it when there's no other obvious explanation for a deal, that he has repeatedly stated he needs overwhelming evidence, essentially. So I find it highly unlikely that he would void Kawhi's contract. I'm finding it dubious as to how much he's really going to come after the Clippers, but it seems like they're finding enough stuff the Clippers have done that they should be hit with some significant penalty.
Yeah.
I think that he's much more likely to, as Kyle alluded to earlier, suspend Kawhi, because that's something that he has very more clear authority to do, since the contract we're talking about with Kawhi was technically 2 contracts ago or whatever.
Right.
So I think he if they do go down the route of deciding that Kawhi should also face some sort of punishment, that's the route they'll go. And I think it's more likely that they would try to punish the agent and or agency in some fashion.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. I'll say this, even if they do suspend Kawhi for upwards of 20 games, 24 games, whatever, that just means he's going to be fresher for the playoffs. Say what you will.
Put him on the Paul George plan, man.
Yeah, the Paul George plan. We talked about it. That Paul George plan did him wonders because he showed up in the playoffs and shut down the guy he was traded for in Jaylen Brown. So who knows? You might be getting 2019 Kawhi after this if he does get suspended. I think worst case scenario, I'm hoping that doesn't go out there, but I'm also worried that I might jinx it the minute I say it, but that they void Kawhi's contract and he decides I'm just going to sign with San Antonio. And then he chooses to like leave you guys at the altar, which, you know, as you can ask Ted Mosby, it's not the greatest thing in the world. So I wouldn't want that for you guys. As a franchise that has been left at the altar many and many a times, I'm looking at you, LeBron. I'm looking at you, Wade, and I'm looking at you, Carmelo. I kind of don't want to see that for you guys because I do like the reunion there. But let's move on from the hypotheticals and actually look at the stuff that actually has taken place with the Toronto Raptors this offseason since I believe they won 7 games in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, right? They won 7 games?
I think so. I'm just trying to remember this off season or this season was so long ago now. But but yeah, they it was ultimately like all things considered, I think it was a relatively successful season for the Raptors in terms of some stabilization.
Okay.
But obviously the goal is going to be, you know, maybe a little they did go 7 against a Cleveland team that I think they were hoping that they would beat, but like was always going to be a tough ask.
Well, particularly without Quickly. I mean, much less Ingram, but Quickly even as the point guard.
Ingram was there; he just didn't show up.
Right.
It was So let's look what they did at the draft. They had the 19th overall pick, which they used to select Allen Graves, and with the 50th pick, they selected Jaden Bradley. They exercised a 2.3 team option on Jamal Shed as well. Starting July 2nd in the free agency moves, they went ahead and signed their first-round pick, Allen Graves. They re-signed Elijah Martin. They signed second-round pick Jaden Bradley. Then July 6th, they signed veteran Kyle Anderson to kind of like fill more of the same things that they already have, like, you know, like a versatile forward that can play either positions. And then, like I mentioned, they signed a free agent, Nate Biddle, unless I mispronounce his name entirely. But the big thing that they did was a proposed Kawhi Leonard trade where, as we mentioned, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick got sent over to the LA Clippers. They also sent a 2027 first-round pick swap with the Clippers, a 31 first unprotected, a 33 unprotected first, a 2030 second rounder, and a 2033 second rounder. Again, trade is currently pending league investigation, so we don't really know what's going to happen. I'll start off with you, Ryland. Based on what you guys did in the regular season and then going into the playoffs, like, what are your thoughts on the moves that they made, not only in the draft but in free agency, aside from the Kawhi Leonard trade? Since we already kind of unpacked it a little bit there, what about everybody else? Like, are you impressed by anybody? Have you looked into your rookies that you guys signed?
I have not, but I do think that there is the one thing looming over the moves made are, I don't think we know anything. We're not going to know anything about what this team's going to look like until we know the end of this investigation. Yeah. Because, like, without Kawhi either being there or not being there, or us grabbing other people or whatever the case may be, I think right now it's just too up in the air for me to be like, you know, I think it's going to be this or that. Like, I think that this is a bigger situation than I initially thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I kind of figured once the trade was announced, you know, publicly, that like, okay, well then this must be near its end. And when I was reading what I was reading over the last week, I'm like, oh, okay. So right now it's just a bunch of question marks for me when it comes to like what we're going to see from this group. I haven't looked into the rookies too much, but the only thing I've heard, honestly, that come out of Summer League is that Chicago's rookies look great.
Well, one of our rookies looks great. The other one
of them, and the two-way player looks great. But
and the two-way player looks great. Kyle, we didn't actually get a chance to talk draft-wise. I don't know how far detailed you were with some of these late first round selections. You guys ended up taking Allen Graves as well there, like I mentioned, at 19. But there were other guys on the board. Was there someone that you know of that you would have liked for the Raptors to go? Do you think Alan Graves is the type of player that they should have selected. I mean, it looks better now with the proposed Kawhi Leonard trade because he could be a win now player, like someone that can help and contribute right away. But seeing the glaring needs at point guard behind quickly and also addressing the issue that is Jakob Poeltl, do you think they should have gone for a big or a guard, especially with a guy like LeBaron Philon still available there that went 3 picks afterwards to Philly?
I think, and I'm not going to pretend I'm a great draft aficionado and like know how, like no detail in great detail the ins and outs of the late first round of the NBA draft, particularly this season. But Alan Graves had a really good summer league, like especially the last game he played in summer league, put up 23, got 6 rebounds. Like, it appears to be a guy who can step in and pick, and like they're not going to need significant minutes out of him, but he does seem to be a guy that can step in and get some, some minutes in a size position. One of the things that you're always a little bit worried about with this group, with this collection of players, is Scotty and Kawhi. Do you want them playing the 4 in any significant amount of time? And the amount of body, particularly Kawhi, the amount of body banging that's going to do, it's going to wear you down. And, the difficulty with the Kawhi thing is like the injury history and the difficulty with that stuff. And with Scotty is you want him, to have more energy to be able to be the key scoring and probably, honestly, playmaking threat on the predominant playmaking threat on this roster. So having somebody who can step in, help things out with that, again, with CMB already there, like you've got some decent players you can add in that. And I think Alan Graves, the goal for him is if he can get into the rotation this year, he's only 19, 19 coming from a small school, looked pretty good in limited minutes. And then, seemed to have a really good summer league. I'm relatively impressed so far, but again, it's still early doors. It's still summer league, and forgive my lack of West Coast Conference like watching last year.
Right.
I didn't check out too many Santa Clara games, which I guess is bad for me as a Canadian. Shout out Steve Nash, most famous Santa Clara alum. But seemed to look good in summer. Seemed to suggest that there's a role for him. Obviously, the other person that you're sort of looking at, as you mentioned, is Biddle, who, if nothing else, he's got that tall. And for a team that could, honestly, having somebody who can step in at center for even 5 or 10 minutes would be amazing.
So confusing to have a Battle and a Biddle on the team.
Yeah. It's
a Biddle battle.
Yeah. It's a weird squad. Like there are some fascinating names.
There is. We're going to look at the names in a sec.
Yeah. But
Mr. Graves there. I don't think if the trade does go through, then you don't expect him to have a lot of rotation minutes, I would expect, right? You'd expect him to be brought along a lot more slowly. So
yes. Is not necessarily a bad thing.
Assuming, because Kawhi's going to be having some games off.
And that's the big thing is when you have load management nights, if Kawhi gets suspended early on in the season, that's a great opportunity to give him some early minutes and see if he's a guy that you want in the rotation. If he is, great. You can probably find some minutes for him. Maybe even give him the occasional look at center in a small ball capacity. He's not exactly a big dude, so it's not something you super want to do.
I think he's definitely one of those smaller
stretch
combo forwards that can play either the 3 or the 4.
Seems to have a decent stroke from beyond the arc too. He shot 41% in college. He was shooting he was making some threes in summer league. And that's another thing. If you want to talk about another weakness for the Raptors, 3-point shooting has been a bit of a problem for this team. Having somebody who can fill that role and get the occasional open look would not be a bad thing. So yeah, that's another way where a Kawhi suspension might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because it gives you an excuse to give Graves some minutes early on and then see if he can prove himself as a guy that you want in the rotation early. If not, it can be a learning season. I don't think anybody's going to lose, anything learning from Kawhi or Scotty about how to play that sort of swingman role.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if there was an obvious center in that place, I think that was probably the biggest glaring need. I recognize the want for a backup point guard, but you hope that in the backup guard role that Shed and Walter can sort of fill that out in an okay capacity. And moreover, on the offensive side of the ball, especially with the acquisition of Kawhi, Scotty sort of becomes the more of that point forward. A lot more serious way than you necessarily could before, because Scotty had to be if not the lead scorer, then like 1A with RJ. And but now Scotty being more of a distributor, getting to see maybe those assist numbers climb up a little bit more.
Okay.
I could definitely see that. Especially again, IQ's not a bad passer by any stretch of the imagination, but he's more point guard than pass guard as well.
Yeah.
So Scotty in that distributor role kind of makes a lot of sense for this team going forward anyway. So I don't know that the point guard deficiency is necessarily going to be a glaring hole. And I also it's scary especially with a team that has win now aspirations, bringing in a rookie and saying, okay, kid, you take up the ball.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a more difficult prospect than necessarily a guy who maybe can do a bit more catch and shoot in Graves.
I mean, they must have known something to make the Allen Graves selection prior to that, or it has some inclination, so they picked someone that could fall for either timeline. Bosh, what's your takes, man, on the outside looking in? Like, do you like what the Raptors have done? Do you think they should have done? I guess that would be pivoting to something else. Do you like what they've done? Like, what are your takeaways on the moves that they've made?
Yeah,
even hypothetical ones.
I mean, I think a no-brainer. Even the awaiting trade is pretty much a no-brainer. I think. I do think they need to shore up that center spot a little bit more. I think. Getting someone who could be maybe a stretch big, that would solve a couple of issues, like a bench stretch big. Obviously, I have a personal stake a bit because I think Jalen Smith would fit very well as like a spot starter, short, low minutes sort of backup center who can stretch the floor and still provide some defensive help at the rim, at least weak side shot blocking type of stuff. But that would be very helpful. I don't think they would want to, like, this might get you through the regular season if they were to pick up like a Zach Collins type, right? But that's not going to help you in the playoffs. I don't think Zach Collins is going to be in your playoff rotation. If
possibly not.
Yeah, so it's definitely unfinished, but it's tricky because you can't finish the roster until you know for sure this trade is going to go through. So it's really tough to judge on that. That aspect.
It's like an incomplete right now.
Sure. Your full roster overhaul is on hold, right? Because if the Kawhi trade is modified significantly, then all of a sudden you have either more resources or less need or whatever it may be. So it's one of the tougher teams to grade at this point, I think. But I mean, the moves they did make is a no-brainer. The move that's on hold anyway.
The other big difficulty thing with this is Jakob Poeltl has a history of injury. He's last 3 seasons, 50, 57, and 46 games. Like, him getting hurt, this becomes a really hard situation. If you've got, Joel Embiid coming to town and no Jakob Poeltl, that's a rough night. Lord knows Cleveland has some, dominant big, talented bigs are not hard to find in the top of the Eastern Conference.
No.
So, or even the prospect of a Giannis coming to town.
Oh no, I think that's
Giannis and Bam
issue.
combo. Yeah,
exactly.
Giannis Bam combo, Joel Embiid with Philly. As you mentioned, Cleveland has two bigs there, and the possibility of LeBron James joining one of those two teams is three of those teams is also a possibility. So that I mean, that doesn't really bode well. But again, right now it does seem like an incomplete. But let's look at what the roster looks like, hypothetically, assuming the Kawhi Leonard trade actually goes through. This is what the projected starting lineup, I believe, would be. Emmanuel quickly at the point with RJ Barrett in the backcourt with them. Kawhi Leonard slotted at the 3 with Scotty Barnes at the 4. I mean, that's mostly just for visual purposes, but they were going to be interchangeable at the 3 and 4. And then Pirtle is obviously going to start at the 5. The key reserves and bench, the primary rotation, the guys that I see getting the most minutes are Cal Anderson, Colin Murray Boyles, Jamal Head, Trace Jackson Davis, who we didn't even talk about. So and then you have Jacoby Walker off the bench as well. Jonathan, like Mugbo. Yeah.
Mobo.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Soundtree.
Elijah Martin, Jameson Battle, and Alan Graves, and we didn't even talk about Biddle. But yeah, that's kind of like what we have here going on. It's not a horrible roster. It's a really good roster, and assuming everything goes well, they make a trade here or there. Let's shore up that front court center position. Maybe get some insurances. Not that it quickly can't be there. I just think you need like some insurance should he go down. And I think after that, you're just kind of like very thin at the guard position. But Kyle, I'll start with you, man. Like, what do you think looking at this projected roster? Like, what are your thoughts on it? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? I mean,
And what do you think of Jamal Shed?
Yeah, another great question.
I think the hope is that Jamal Shed last season, if I'm not mistaken, his numbers last year sort of indicate that he is more that traditional point guard. Like he scored, like he had 22 minutes a game last season, which is not insignificant. Was not scoring at a particularly interesting clip. Like his sort of percentages were down. So he's not a guy who's going to get you the 3-point shooting, as we mentioned. This is another weakness for Toronto.
Yeah.
But almost 5.5 assists a game is not nothing and you could hope that if he's going to get, those minutes probably go down a little bit this year. Probably would ideally like him more in the 15 to 20 range. But he's a guy who can come in, move the ball around a little bit. I wouldn't call him like he's not going to light anybody's world on fire, but I don't think he's a bad depth point guard. Ideally, you'd like to get somebody who's a little bit more consistent. Ideally, you'd want to get somebody who's a little bit more veteran, but I don't know, like not a bad guy to be able to contribute to the team. Like he got some pretty, obviously with IQ going down, he got some pretty heavy rotational minutes in the playoffs, was exposed a little bit, but again, still decent. So I don't know that I don't know that that's necessarily the most glaring need, assuming IQ stays healthy. If IQ goes, like if we start to lose IQ again,
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see them experiment with a lineup of very big wings. You have RJ, Kawhi, Kyle Anderson, and Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
Whoever that fourth like forward would be, like you could put in an Alan Graves as well, their rookie that just selected. You could see a lineup where they're just completely interchangeable, because if you're already running the offense through Scotty Barnes and you already know that a guy like Kawhi Leonard can facilitate a possession for you, you know, you might not need a point guard at some points in time.
And that's the only big, and that's the thing. In stretches, I think you're right. The only question would be like if you're dealing with a speedy offensive point guard.
Yes.
Scotty having to keep up with him, that's a hard, and presumably Scotty would be that cover as opposed to like Kawhi is obviously still an elite defender, but is a guy you want defending more of a 2 through 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, agreed. You don't want
You
him
don't want either of them. Well, you definitely don't want Kawhi really to be chasing around guards on the perimeter,
Yeah.
off of screens and whatnot.
Yeah, and that kind of loses the whole point of having Kawhi. So that's the only concern, is that you do lose some of that defensive cover. But I honestly do think that I think they're okay in that guard spot. But again, this is a team that once you have to consider rotation, once you have to consider additional minutes, once you consider the possibility of injuries. But yeah, as far as that roster goes, and that's the other question, I am not as high on Kyle Anderson as I think some other people are.
Yeah, no, I don't know if he's got much left there. He hasn't been very
No.
effective in a bit.
And that's my big thing is
Yeah.
the thing is Kyle Anderson, I think, adds a nice sort of potential rotational option, especially in the early days if we're losing Kawhi to suspension. But the big question for me in that spot is, what are we getting out of CMB in year 2? Are we talking about a guy who's making the leap to being a bigger contributor? Because I think he is sort of he's an interesting like leverage point as to what we're getting out of if he makes a not a significant leap, but if he becomes like a solid 6-man. This team starts to look really interesting.
Well, I mean, that playoff
really
experience is kind of key for that. Like, it was really good to get him that last year. So I think that his development.
It's the same thing that RJ during the playoffs was shooting at a clip that, there are moments there when RJ was first acquired and then in the playoffs last year, there are moments where you see an RJ Barrett that seems determined to just get that ball in the bucket and seems to find a way to do it. And he was starting to move the ball decently as well in the postseason as well. So there's a lot to be excited about it with this Raptors team.
Yeah.
There are still questions, obviously, and the size, like after Pirtle, and Lord help us if Pirtle gets hurt, because that is a rough go.
For sure, that would be the biggest issue.
Exactly
when he goes down. But I think that's just that kind of goes with both positions. I like that you were talking about Colin Boyles and his defense and his experience in the playoffs. Again, as a rookie, that we still don't like. Again, we're assuming that Allen Graves might not get too many playing time, and that's all dependent on if Kawhi misses some time, either due to load management or suspension or what have you. But there is a real possibility where Allen Graves gets some playing time. Rylan, based on the roster, how it looks like, what do you personally like it? Like, I know you're not going to go into as much detail as Kyle, but as a Raptors fan, like, what is it about this team that you genuinely like, and what are your realistic? If you had to be realistic, what are your realistic expectations for this team? Should Kawhi actually make his way back up north?
I mean, like, I think we're certainly going to be viewed like a lot more dangerous. Kawhi Leonard is a guy who, like, again, like, while he has the problem with getting injured and he loves his load management, like, when that guy puts on those working shoes, he fucking goes out there and plays basketball.
Right.
I'm excited I'm very excited for this season. Unfortunately, it's bringing a star like Kawhi back to the Raptors is only going to make those tickets even more unaffordable to a guy like me, which is unfortunate because I am close enough to go. But again, like, I think defensively we're going to be.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Coming to Toronto, you're going to get worked. And this definitely feels like a team in Darko's image. He's always had that sort of like that. I mean, maybe this is stereotypical with the Eastern European in him, but like he is that guy who's like, you have to play all 48 and they're all going to be hard.
Yeah.
And this is a team that's going to give you hard minutes.
I think like when it comes to like quickly and stuff like that, like I like him. Do I think we could improve? Sure. I like RJ Barrett where he is. I like the amount of Canadians that we're slowly, accumulating onto the team. I would love to see. I heard rumor the other day that they're looking at Jamal Murray. I think that would be a fun little addition to the team.
Could you flip Brandon Ingram and give those draft picks for Jamal Murray?
If the thing gets voided,
if the contract gets voided and you just sign Kawhi Leonard outright, I don't know. It's fun in 2K. Really I do it in 2K.
Yeah, you still really miss that center depth.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably the most pressing issue. If you happen to be able to get Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram back, and you'd be able to dangle them as trade pieces, obviously there's a lot of things you want to fix. And I do think the center thing might be a bigger issue.
Okay, so what Canadians are playing center in the NBA currently that you guys can trade for?
That's a better question for Kyle than it is me. I will say, like I said, when it comes to the bench, I don't know enough about these guys outside. Shed, in 2K, he's an assist machine. So I'm gonna go with based on that. I'm excited to see his performance, but realistic outcomes for this team, I would love to say they could be the top of the East. That would be fun. I don't think so. But I mean, stranger things have happened. My problem though is that for me, like the West is very
the East
very. No. I'm saying once you get down to it in the playoffs, like the West, I don't think even as defensively indestructible as we may be, I don't think that this is a championship team. But again, stranger things have happened. We've had some wacky seasons with teams, and like Kawhi again, when he puts those basketball shoes on, whew, boy, he can play basketball. So
that's fair.
Yeah, realistic goal. I mean, I would love to see them have a deep playoff run. I think even if they made an NBA final, I don't think they would though. Okay. Now it seems like OKC out there.
Again, everything is an incomplete right now until the aspiration deal is fulfilled. I don't think you're really going to see a complete version of what this Raptors team is going to be like until the trade deadline. After the trade deadline passes is what you're really going to see what this team's going to be. And
you guys need to find a way to get I don't know, a Max Strus type of player. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Or Norman Powell at the trade deadline. Reunite Norman Powell with Toronto. He provides 3-point shooting, and I hear he could be had for the right price at the deadline.
That seems to be the theme of his career.
Honestly.
Honestly, that's what I want the team to be for the Chicago Bulls' entire roster, with the exception of a handful. They're available at the trade deadline for the right price.
Yeah, it's too bad that Trey Jones doesn't shoot more threes, or I would have said he'd be perfect to back up.
Oh, Trey Jones. Yeah, we got all the bench guys you guys want.
He's a good flashing scorer. I just feel like Toronto needs a backup point guard who, yes, could step in, which Trey could do at a low cost salary too, so you wouldn't have to give up anybody. The problem is, I think you guys really need a backup point guard who can just catch and shoot a little bit.
Yeah, someone that can just kind of fill almost like a Derek Fisher type role that he did with the Lakers, or
I mean, think back to what Javon Carter was before the Bulls signed him, right? Basically.
There definitely is someone.
But I mean, looking at I'm looking at some advanced numbers for Jamal Shed, and that's the big thing about him.
Yeah,
seems to the passing, the defense, all relatively solid. The shooting it's just not there, and that's the question. Is I think this team's goal is we're keeping it under 100. We're making teams play city miles, and you don't get to take
it.
You don't get to take that. You don't get to go fast and just score it well against the Raptors. I also heard that they were kicking around an idea of trying to pick up Lou Dort. Speaking of adding Canadians,
Well,
which
Lou
was
Dort actually.
yeah, because he was traded, but the Raptors were sort of in on that
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That again, as much as I want to say what the Raptors seem to need is somebody who can, come off the bench and do some shooting, the Raptors don't seem that interested in
No,
shooting.
No,
They're
apparently
here,
not. Apparently
they're
not.
here to take you
Okay.
down.
So I think
Sticking
that's
true
a
to form.
great. I think that's a great segue to my two questions to wrap up this episode. Is what should they have done instead up until this point? Is there something that the Raptors should have done instead? Rylan, I'm going to start with you first. Like, is there something you would have liked for them to do?
Maybe not publicly stated that they were going to trade for Kawhi Leonard. For the reason that you brought up earlier, because of where the situation lies right now, how unfair it is to Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram. And don't get me wrong, I've said a lot about Brandon Ingram over the last season and just how I'm not thrilled with his devotion to our team. But I mean, that is what it is. That being said, like, I still do think it's an unfair situation. If this was like, from what I understand, the Raptors knew plenty in advance before this trade was announced.
Yeah,
all along.
This was going to be an ongoing situation.
Yeah,
and I just think for the
ahead.
betterment of not only these players, but the fan base, who is like sitting here kind of in limbo going like, what's going to happen? I just think it would have been better to kind of hold off until this investigation is over and done with, and whatever process that comes next was taken care of before we did this. Like, it's not like you couldn't have made this trade next season if that's what it was going to be,
or at the deadline, maybe,
or
make this your final. Because like you look at what they gave up, wasn't anything consequential. Why not build the roster that you think will fit with Kawhi? Because honestly, whether Kawhi is on the roster, I think that the roster that they could possibly build is going to fit with or without Kawhi. So I don't know. Like, you just kind of like assume Ingram is kind of like that placeholder for Kawhi, and then I mean Grady Dick was out of the rotation by the playoffs, so But I'm actually going to pivot over to Bosch and then leave Kyle for last. Bosch, is there anything that you think that the Raptors should have done up until this point in the offseason?
I mean,
whether that's in the draft or free agency.
Yeah,
or
before this Kawhi trade, I was like, okay, they're draft pick. I don't know enough about them. Like, it's fine. They targeted power forward. But to me, you have Colin Murray Boyles at that spot. And yes, you want him to play some small ball five. And I would have taken a shot at a guard, a shooting guard. I mean, look at the guy we kept pining for who dropped, right? Like Cameron Carr, who is having a great summer league. Maybe not, necessarily him, but, somebody like that who has some defensive potential and a large, shooting ability and some athletic ability. Like that would have been a nice shot to have right now on this roster at that guard position. But, that's, it is what it is. I guess they targeted Graves. We'll see if he turns out to be, if he turns out to be a rotation player on a playoff team in year one, then that's kind of a win. I doubt that's going to happen. That rookies are generally not there, especially, mid to late first rounders. But they do need to target. I think once they made that deal for Kawhi, right, they should have done a little bit of what I was suggesting the Bulls to do, except in an opposite direction. I said the Bulls needed to target those teams who had luxury tax and salary cap issues that they were definitely going to need to resolve, and it was obvious, and that you should then poach players or picks or whatever it is. And I think the Raptors should do that, or should have done that, and targeted teams like, whether it's Cleveland or Denver, and they, to some extent, they still can. But I do think that that's what they should do. They should go after those teams that are salary cap impacted, and maybe flip a couple of their contracts, maybe even Pirtle, man. I mean, the problem is you just need some kind of center then. And so it's a tough call here, but they need to target the Denvers and the Miamis and the whoever else, Minnesota, whoever else is out there, and try to identify a couple of players who they think can slot into their rotation, maybe even a contract that is a little bit worse than a contract you have, that maybe you can entice them to move that way. But they really need to fill around.
more so because you are trying to compete and what
Yeah.
have you. Okay.
Absolutely, and that's why that like Graves is a developing power forward. I don't love that pick, especially now that you have this trade. Like I think.
I mean, if
could've
he
done
was on
something
the
else there.
board, a guy like Morris Johnson would have been fantastic. A guy like Bennett Sturts, who unfortunately was already selected prior to the 19th pick, would have been a really good guy to not only give you some playmaking in the backup point spot, but also some shooting.
I mean, they still can, dude. You look at OKC. I think that was a real missed opportunity for teams in that OKC has like a roster full of good players who they can't even play all of them, and are just kind of concerned about dumping them here or there, and you know kind of going after those and getting a player like Wiggins or somebody who's like a proven playoff rotation player who just can't. Well, Aaron, not Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Aaron
you were trying to get
Wiggins.
more Canadians
No,
on
Aaron,
Toronto.
wrong Canadian or
Okay.
wrong Wiggins.
Wrong Wiggins.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that sort of deal is definitely I think what they should have done, because you have too big of a gaping hole right now, I think, at center, because Pirtle can't stay healthy.
No.
And I'm not sure how effective he is still once he is healthy.
I'll tell you this about Pirtle is I put together this Kawhi Leonard trade in 2K, and I've been running this team. And don't get me wrong, when I'm playing, I'm fucking fantastic. But Pirtle went down in the second game for 4 to 6 months. I have been running Boyle on center for the entire time. I think I recently picked up a center, but
awesome.
That's exactly. You guys were as soon as you said he's going to get hurt. I'm like, yeah, he always gets hurt, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, trust me, we've gone through that. Okay, so we'll unpack that a little bit more in our last question, Bosch. We'll kick it over to Kyle. Kyle, based on everything they've done, draft, free agency, trades, whatever, is there something you feel like they should have done instead up until this point, or something you would have liked for them to have done up until this point that they haven't done so?
I mean, the big thing, if there's something I wish they hadn't done, it would have been given Jakob Poeltl 4 years for 26 a year.
No, this offseason. Not
I know. I know.
You want Patrick Williams? We'll swap.
Jesus. Mitchell Robinson probably been a little bit too expensive. If you're looking at the centers, that's a big thing, is the Raptors don't have a ton of money. I think the name I'd sort of maybe would have liked to have kicked around, I'm surprised he re-signed with Utah, would have been Joseph Nurkic.
I was just thinking the same. I was punching myself for not having mentioned the fact that maybe you can still get Nurkic somehow.
That would be a great acquisition at the deadline.
Exactly.
That type, and I think that's the hope, is that either a buyout candidate or somebody who you can bring in and plug in at the 5 would be a really nice thing. Pirtle, his contract's untradeable. It's way too high. It's way too long. It's through 2029, 2030.
That is a wild extension, dude.
Yeah, it was. I remember it coming at the time and being like, he put us over the barrel because he was the only tall. But then they kept including because after they got rid of Pascal, they got rid of Precious Achiuwa. They got it was sort of all of their bigs all at once. I can't remember, they sent somebody else in that Barrett Quickly trade where they just lost a lot of that size that they had established for so long. Jakob Poeltl, if he's healthy, is probably worth that kind of contract. He's not an amazing center at any stretch of the imagination, but he's functional at the center position. Yeah. But as soon as he goes down, they go from functional to literally nobody right now.
Yeah.
And the hope that you're holding out, if you're the Raptors, is that if he's going to have his injury problems, let them be later rather than earlier, because then you can maybe fill them with a deadline acquisition or a waiver pickup.
Oh, that makes sense.
Or some sort of flyer, another injury risk, but like a Time Lord, like Robert Williams, maybe this,
But Joseph Nurkic is immediately the guy that jumps to off the page. Also had some injury issues last season, but he's coming off of a nose injury, which, presumably that's one that's not going to be, you're expecting to be a recurring issue for him. He's also coming off of another year where he had 10 plus rebounds, a thing that he's done a bunch in his career. Like, that's kind of what this rebounding and 3-point shooting is what this team badly needs. The 3-point shooting is much harder to address, and I think unlikely to address, because there's nobody off that you want to take off of this rotation to give you significant minutes to somebody who can shoot. You hope that RJ Barrett comes into the season and can deliver the shooting with a bit higher efficiency. But in terms of like the big thing that the Raptors need to figure out is hopefully you can solve the center issue before Pirtle goes down. But if Pirtle does go down, all of a sudden this roster construction starts to look tricky. And the thing that you want to avoid is having to play some of these guys. Like Scotty is the point center.
Point center,
like,
yeah.
that's the date. Like, I love Scotty, but he's there's limits to what you can ask out of him, and that's probably.
By the way, this addresses literally none of your problems, but just wanted to remind you, DeMar DeRozan's a free agent right now.
Listen,
look, it's an interesting situation, because I heard I think Rylan was telling me that it'd be a reunion. It's like, no, this is not a reunion.
Right.
Very super not a reunion. But DeMar would be fun, but he doesn't really solve a lot of the issues. The one thing he does solve is that he does get you some scoring off the bench.
Yeah.
Which they kind of could use some scoring off. And maybe you just double down on the idea that, like, you know what? This whole small and tall, we don't do that here.
Right.
We're running we're going all swing man all the time.
And kind of would slot in if Kawhi does miss.
They swing both ways.
Yes. If Kawhi does miss early on, he would fit that. He would fit very nicely as an acquisition there.
And maybe he'd be more willing to do the bench roll thing coming back home, basically.
Yes.
In Toronto, where
But I think the thing that's most overlooked about all this, and I was talking to Rylan about this a little bit, which is one of the things that is interesting in terms of Kawhi, what his legacy now in the NBA is really weird. Because before this trade, and again, the trade is still pending, but before this trade, he was going to be a guy who was a first ballot Hall of Famer who was not going to get his jersey retired. Because he played 1 year with the Raptors, which would be a team that you'd think would retire his jersey, but 1 year is that's a
1 year, and he delivered a championship, best player in franchise history.
That's the thing. That would be true in the vast majority of markets. Up here, we take things way too personal to be able to allow for that. Like,
yeah, it took
Michael Jordan.
It took forever for Vince Carter to get his jersey retired.
Yes. Yeah, we take that stuff personally, which is whatever. But like San Antonio, I don't know if the bad blood will ever really go away with Kawhi in San Antonio. Maybe
I think it will.
It might.
Yeah,
it might eventually, but that's still a tough ask. And the Clippers,
he barely played enough. Like when they made it to the conference finals, he couldn't even play in it was all Paul George. So
yeah, that's true.
Like he spent 6 years with the Clippers, and it's like you're talking about a guy who is a clear and obvious first ballot inner circle Hall of Fame guy in the NBA. Who, where was his jersey? Where was number 2 going to be hanging in the rafters? And this gives him the opportunity to have a legacy in Toronto where after his career is over, he can be like, while he was here very briefly, the nickname the King of the North came up. And I was right. I think it was like right at the tail end of
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones as well.
Yeah.
So it worked out really nicely. Could we see the King of the North come back and really make his impact on Toronto and, like, if nothing else, carve himself a real like home legacy for himself in the NBA? I think there's something cool about that makes this a lot more intriguing from that perspective.
For sure.
Because again, you go through the Clippers jersey retirements are going to be a weird prospect in and of itself, because like
It's just
so
basically
many
got to be CP and Blake, man.
Yeah,
Like,
so many talented players that did not get them past the second round of the playoffs,
But that's fine because honestly, I think we weigh jersey retirements too heavily on their postseason success as
Sure.
opposed to just like
Yeah.
team impact.
Sure.
Because I'm also the big proponent of, yes, he was on the championship team. He helped them win their first title more so than the other two titles. But Udonis Haslem definitely earned that jersey retirement with Miami. A guy,
but he was a lifer there.
He was a lifer, stuff like that. So, and I love that we're talking about this because we will be doing a jersey retirement podcast, like predicting or giving our pitches to who the next jersey should be retired for each franchise. But we'll save the jersey conversation for that. I got one final question for you guys, and then we'll get on out of here. One move that you would like to see the Raptors do next, and let's just assume, Kawhi Leonard's on the deal, on the team, and the deal goes through. Best case scenario, you guys give up one less future first, or something like that, in terms of compensation, and then Kawhi maybe gets like a 20-game suspension, if that. Assuming that goes along the way, you have a lot of guys off the bench or in the starting lineup that kind of overlap, and you may not need. If a guy like Allen Graves actually shows out that he can actually play that for you and give you contributing minutes, you start looking at other guys that might be a little bit more expendable. So I don't know what it would take, but a team like Portland has like 5 point guards right now. If you can somehow maybe work an RJ Barrett trade, or I don't know who would be the players involved to get it done, but if you can get a Drew Holiday to be your starting caliber point guard that can play with it quickly in the backcourt together, that would be a move that I would like to see them do, or at least a move along those veins, that it's a veteran point guard that can help you compete, whether that's at the deadline or next offseason. I think that's what they should do next. If not that, I'm calling Milwaukee. I'm like, hey, that Miles Turner contract's looking kind of bad. We wouldn't mind having Miles Turner on the team. Let's send some of my bad contracts and we'll give you some compensation and you give me back that bad contract. Maybe a team like Milwaukee is what you should be searching for. A team that just recently traded away their best player, that have no need for Miles Turner anymore on that roster, among other guys like Kyle Kuzma. Don't trade for Kyle Kuzma. But like a guy like Myers Leonard, who has like experience in the playoffs, a guy like Drew Holiday has championship experience. That's kind of what I would do next if Kawhi Leonard a trade goes through. I'll start with you, Rylan, since you've been making trades in 2K. What would be the next trade you make in 2K?
I mean, I really like like if you're going Portland, like just throw a bunch of money at old man Dame and we can make some magic happen. Right. No, I kid. Drew Holiday, I don't hate that. I don't love him either though. I really do like Barrett on the team. Like I said, if you're gonna move anybody for me, it's like Kyle said, you can't really do anything with Podol's contract. So like, I would more be interested in moving quickly for somebody a little bit more talented, a little bit of a better passer. But I mean, like, again, I don't hate Drew Holiday. So that's what I would do though. Okay. And again, the focus on finding somebody better to play center, I think should be your top focus. But I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, so then we already discussed it. So when everything goes through, DeMar DeRozan gets re-signed for a vet minimum. I kind of want to do it. I kind of want to see it just for the vibes because I love DeMar so much here in Chicago, and I want him to win a championship. And I think it'd be beautiful to see him be the other tandem duo between Lowry and DeMar. They couldn't get over the hump. Finally get a championship with Kawhi Leonard. 2 different teams, 2 different eras. Very beautiful. I would love to see that. And if that happens, I think DeMar DeRozan is also in contention for jersey retirement.
Yeah.
I think he's already there, but
no. But even more so. More so. Okay, Kyle, I'll go with you, and then Bosch will wrap up with we'll wrap things up with you. Kyle, what do you want to see next from the Raptors? What do you think they should do next? What would you do next?
Miles Turner is an interesting one. The big thing with Miles Turner, like if it involves Pirtle going the other way, I don't hate the Miles Turner idea. The big concern with Miles Turner is it doesn't address the big issue that the Raptors have with bigs, which is rebounding. He's okay as a rebounder, but he's not great at it. And that, like, they're going to need somebody who got sports. I think I already said it. The hope is the Jazz are going to be trashing him this year. And maybe you can dangle something to get Yusuf Nurkic in the door. And I think he would add, assuming he's, healthy-ish, that's also a tough prospect for him. But he would add something in terms of size and rebounding ability that I think is going to be harder to find around the league. Especially, and that's the big problem is if the Raptors have playoff aspirations, your opponents are probably Miami, probably Philly, probably Cleveland. Teams all got bigs. And
New York,
even a health, New York. Yeah, New York. I forgot about New York. Yeah, they've got with Cat. Is Cat the scariest guy, most imposing guy? No, but he'll grab boards, and this is a team that can't do that, or will probably struggle to do that. So, that would be probably my
Anthony Davis. He doesn't want to be in Washington.
I don't want anything to do with Anthony Davis.
So I would but the problem is and that's the big thing. The Raptors do own some of their picks. Yeah. I think they have the right to trade their 28 pick but their 28 or 29 pick, but they already have picks going out the door with this one. You can't do the back-to-backs. You could do some pick swaps because they still do own 28, 29, 30, and 32. Okay. So there's pick swap potential there for some of that stuff. But I do think there's a lot of interesting bench talent that you could dangle out the door. But it's tricky because you don't really want to give up on RJ Barrett. The suggestion of trading RJ Barrett, that's hard because you need somebody to get some point, to shoot.
But I'd argue that was the same conversation with trading DeMar and Pirtle the first time around for Kawhi. It's it's tough to give up on some of these guys, but sometimes if you want that upgrade in talent, you're going to have to.
But the thing that you had,
the guy you don't want.
But the thing that you had was you had Kyle Lowry, and then also they were able to put the size was not the issue for that team because they had Marc Gasol, they added I can't even remember his name now, Ibaka, and then you had Kyle Lowry who was the proper shooter for that team. In addition to being a very solid point guard in his own right. You have interesting players on this team. Yeah. The roster construction is a little bit weird, but I think it's going to be a question of can you make a smaller lineup work for enough minutes to be able to make this thing go?
Yeah, and that's the question because in the regular season you can get away with that, but the playoffs is the big question.
It's a much harder thing in the playoffs, and ultimately, Jakob Poeltl is going to have to come off the floor at some point.
Yeah, he will.
And if you're running into a Cleveland or a Philly or a New York, who are you putting up to face him?
That's a great question. We'll see what happens there. Bosch, before we get out of here, what are your thoughts? What would you do next if you're the Raptors?
It's tough. I really think they should have targeted somebody like Isaiah Joe the way the Pistons did from the Thunder. And I think there are other options to do something like that I would be strongly looking at. The Thunder still have basically 2 players on rookie contracts who are probably not in their plans in Topic and Thomas Sorber. Sorber is a center. Maybe there's a way you can grab him for cheap from the Thunder. That solves some of the Thunder's issues and perhaps can solve yours. But also Sorber's I don't think he's particularly tall. I think he's 6'9". I mean, if he's close to 6'10", then that'd be fine. I guess he wouldn't exactly be undersized. But my memory is that he's not that tall. The issue here is anything I suggest is tough because of how late it is in the offseason and salary
Mhm.
matching for the Raptors. You're only a couple million under the first apron. So matching rules come into play. You can't just absorb more money. And the teams they're dealing with that I would say to target. Now, for the Thunder, I say to target them because the players who are excessive on their roster are relatively value contracts because they're all young players. So on a rookie or second contract. So I think there is a chance there, but again, Aaron Wiggins is off. They've already traded Dort. I don't know if he was really the type of fit that you'd want anyway. Isaiah Joe is gone. So out of what's remaining, they're not going to. It's Case and Wallace. They're not going to trade. So there's not much left there other than like Thomas Sorber and Topic. I think that you can then do the other thing I said, which is target teams that are looking to shed salary. The problem is you can't really help them. Your tradable salary is either Pirtle at 20, in which case again you're dealing your only real center, like full-time center. He's in his contract, like Kyle said, goes up to like what 26,
29, 30.
Dude, that's like, so that's not going to help one of those teams.
No.
Then you've got Quickly, and the thing with Barrett here is you may just have to, because he's like possibly the only sort of matching salary.
Yeah.
Now think about it this way: I would say target, say Cameron Johnson, right, from Denver, because they still do have those concerns and they still want to get Peyton Watson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, what does Cameron Johnson make? Like 25, 20, 23.
Yeah.
23 mil.
Like that.
So Barrett makes more. So that doesn't help Denver. So that's not really a way you can get off of that. Maybe again, the only way to do that is if you send them Pirtle, but then you can't. That's too much of a difference. I don't think the Raptors could do that based on salary matching rules, and also then you lose that center. So maybe your only option is to really go hard and target Jamal Murray and package like quickly, and and either Barrett or Pirtle or whatever to do that. But that's my suggestion. In the meantime, I would look at those sort of low cost options that are still out there that you may be able to kind of poach. And I think, again, like I would really go after like a Cam Johnson, like that would be a good target. I don't know what Michael Porter Jr. is making right now. From
no, he's I don't think I'd go after Michael
he
Porter
cost
Jr.
a lot.
Because,
he would cost a
just
lot
because it feels like a lot of overlap.
That's what I was going to say. Positional, it's duplicative, right? Positionally.
Yeah.
But Cam Johnson, you could play him at the 2. The problem again is you can't do that salary matching wise unless I don't see a way. I just don't see a way.
No, it's
so you gotta flip these guys like TJD or something, and go for the low cost match options. So again, the Bulls have a couple. They have Jalen Smith. I think that might be doable.
Trey Jones is available. Jalen Smith's available. Matter of fact,
no, but honestly,
we'll do a 2-for-1.
Like,
we'll take Pirtle. You get Smith, and you get.
Whoa, we're taking Pirtle. We're getting a lot more back.
No. Don't worry about the draft compensation. We'll figure about that later, guys.
The real tragedy is that Jonas Valanciunas is going back to Lithuania.
Yeah, I know.
That actually could have been a decent backup center for
Where's
them.
Kelly Olynyk when you need him? He would have been perfect.
Is he still going?
He's somewhere. I think he
was in Utah or something, or San Antonio. That's right. He went to San Antonio. Right.
He's a free agent. He's a free agent.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Kelly Olynyk, the answer for the Raptors at center.
I mean, your choice might have to be even like packaging Graves, as like the enticing thing.
It could be, and then
in a trade
again, I think that'd be fine. All right, well, guys, we're at that point of the episode. Unfortunately, we do have to say goodbye. So, Bosch, I'll let you go first, man. Tell the people where they can find you, where they can talk hoops with you online.
Probably shouldn't, but if you really must, it's on Blue Sky, systemlords.bsky.social. I am glad we finally got to this franchise we've been waiting to talk about. That did peak in 2019 also. So it was good to see you guys. Good to chat with you. Always a good time with both of you, Rylan and Kyle. Thank you.
Yeah, since you did the notes for it, we might do a Doomsday trailer review reaction video. We'll figure out things. Kyle, Rylan, where can people find you guys, and tell them all about Wallop Media, which we're all about.
Well, I mean, like, you can find all of our socials are at Wallop Media, Instagram, Facebook, X. We have a Blue Sky. We have a Threads. They're not as active. And I honestly, when I was on Blue Sky, I felt like I was just yelling into the void. So I haven't had it for a minute.
Yeah, it takes a minute.
That
to
being
build
said,
up.
yeah, that's where you can find all our stuff. Every Friday, Saturday, and Tuesday, we've got new content on our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/Wallop Media Inc. Yeah. I mean, Kyle, what do we got coming up that's exciting for the people? I mean, you came back to Wallop Rewind. That's going to be that was a goofy episode. There was lots of giggles on that one. That's going to be lots of clips from that one.
We're starting the process of reviewing all the first 151 Pokemon on Over Under as well. So
Nice.
Vince is also a part of that. It's a lot of fun and a lot of chaos, and we only got through a few of them. So you're gonna have several episodes of that coming up. But the first one, I believe, is dropping in August as well, or late July. I can't remember.
It's already out.
Oh, is it? Oh, just came out. So
yeah,
if you're listening to this, you can hear it. So check it out.
There you go. And obviously on Wallop Media, you can catch us every Saturday, except last week because life. But it's okay. We gave you 2 episodes this week. I did a solo LeBron Lotto episode, so go ahead and check that out on YouTube at Wallop Media Inc. as well as 606 Universe on the audio podcast. I didn't plug at the beginning. I probably should have, but we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Just go ahead and search up 606 podcast over there. You can listen to the audio feeds while you're making the trip down Toronto to go watch these brand new Toronto Raptors play. It'd be a fun time for sure. And we got more stuff coming up next week. Episode, I'm gonna spoil it here. We're gonna be talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. At some point, it's gonna be watched, and at some point, it's gonna be reviewed. If not, you're still going to get an episode, so don't even worry about that. With that being said, guys, thank you to Rylan and Kyle for joining us on the episode and talking some Raps basketball. I'm very much excited. I love it. Hope you guys get the mar. For SES Vince, Bashara, and the rest of the Wallop Media gang, catch you guys on the next one. Later, y'all.
Peace.